today, Dr. Yun Wen, who is going to talk about the fascinating topic of an interdisciplinary approach to understanding behaviours of travel-eligible tourists with mild dementia, with a focus on travel therapy. We're particularly interested in this topic in the SAGE lab, where we're running a randomized controlled trial on people living with dementia from migrant backgrounds. And this travel dimension is really very important to us. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Wen, a lecturer in interdisciplinary research between tourism and health at the School of Business and Law here at ECU. Very well published, over 100 peer-reviewed journal articles since 2018, amazing. Cited over 5,500 times. And research streams that span several themes: marginalized populations in tourism, for example, tourists living with health conditions; socially deviant consumer behavior and social issues in tourism, for example, human trafficking. We have other members of TRACS who are interested in this topic: travel medicine in tourism and global health in tourism. So also named one of Australia's top 40 young researchers per the Australian Tourism Field Rising Star Award 2 years in a row, 2020 and 2021. Numerous awards I can see on this extensive list. So we are really honoured to have you present for us today, Dr. Wen. Can I hand over the microphone to you?
Okay, no problem. Okay, thank you for your introduction and having me here today. So first, let me share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen, everyone?
Yes, that's nice and clear.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, so thank you for having me today for the presentation. So I can recall I was very impressed by presentation done by Dr. Simone Marino in last year's ECU MCN conference. And I had the opportunity to have a conversation with members of his team, including Dr. Katrina Stevens. So the presentation really inspired my passion for making a meaningful contribution to the vulnerable population, such as individuals with dementia, through research and actively engaging with them to understand their lives. So I really appreciate all the efforts put in by your team. So today is my pleasure to represent my research team. You can see the list. To provide a brief overview of our ongoing research project. So our focus is on supporting vulnerable populations with health conditions to engage in tourism and have positive experiences. So we are particularly studying travel-eligible individuals with dementia as a case study. So I must admit today that I have some concerns about presenting an ongoing research project because I cannot present the whole picture at this stage. However, I believe this is a valuable opportunity to share our common research interest in the context of dementia populations. So today's my topic is using an interdisciplinary approach to investigate the behaviors of travel-eligible tourists with mild dementia with a focus on travel therapy. So this presentation will delve into the interdisciplinary realm between tourism and health, and hopefully can provide some insight into this emerging area. So I would like to quickly introduce myself. So my name is Jun. I'm a Chinese who has lived in New Zealand and Australia for around 15 years. So currently, I'm a lecturer at the School of Business and Law at Discovery University, and I also the senior research fellow adjunct from Zhejiang University, one of the top university in China. So I also really appreciate all the support I received from the prestigious university in China to support my research in this area. So since 2020, so my focus has been on conducting research in certain areas. So the first stream is marginalized population tourism. So such as the tourists living with health and conditions. So today's presentation topic falls in within this stream. Additionally, as mentioned, I do research around the different consumer behavior in tourism, with a particular interest in human and sex trafficking. And another two other highly relevant areas of my study lies in travel medicine and global health in tourism using an interdisciplinary approach. So in summary, my research is driven by my personal interest and life-based observations, and with the aim of making an impact on society and hopefully can contribute to some certain groups of people in the world. Before 2022, I was recognized as a tourism researcher who conducted conventional studies to gain insight into tourist behaviors and the developments in tourism marketing. However, my research focus shifted towards exploring the relationship between tourism and human health. The objective was to uncover ways in which these remote fields could be integrated to propose innovative research contexts that promote human well-being through tourism. So initially, this transition was very challenging, as the tourism was conventionally associated with concepts like holidays, leisure, and relaxation. However, so when I began exploring the connection between tourism and the specific health conditions such as dementia, I entered uncharted territory. This presented both opportunities and challenges for this emerging research area, as it required conducting research in a completely new area. So this article featured in the Journal of Global Health presented our perspectives on the changing function of tourism in the modern society. So extending beyond the mere sightseeing to encompass significant possibilities for influencing public and global health. And I came across an article in Times Higher Education last year. In this article, John Ross, who served as the Asian Pacific editor, raised the question of whether interdisciplinarity is a recent phenomenon. So from my own perspective, while it may not be entirely new, its significance lies in how we harness it to accomplish our research objectives. So when it comes to the intersection of tourism and health, so there is a fresh research stream, particularly through the integration of tourism with medical and health sciences. So since 2020, so I have begun gaining knowledge about dementia and its related populations with the support of my mentors and colleagues in the field of medical sciences. So this has led me to establish an international interdisciplinary research team, including expertise from health, marketing, smart technology, and communication. So our primary focus is on exploring the relation between tourism and health, and specifically targeting individuals with dementia. So as our research progresses over time, so we are delighted to see more colleagues join us in our efforts to push this new research direction forward. So we firmly believe that research should not be viewed as a competition, but rather as a means to find purpose and make a positive impact on the lives of others especially for the vulnerable populations. So we're looking for new collaborators who are willing to join forces across different disciplines to contribute the project outlined in the upcoming slides. So this slide showcases our 10-year research project plan. So currently we are around halfway through the planned timeline. So despite facing a few setbacks in securing research grants last year, and for the next phase of our study, we now have a bit more time this year to carefully consider the research design and address any conceptual gaps in exploring the RCT to explore the relationship between tourism experiences and the well-being of dementia tourists. So as indicated in the slides, while the initial stage are still ongoing from stage 1 to stage 3, so we are preparing for stage 4 now. So which focus on the medical science aspect of empirical research investigation. The overarching objective of this interdisciplinary project is to combine social and medical science research methodologies to empirically evaluate the clinical effectiveness of travel therapy for individuals with dementia who are eligible for travel. So this evaluation will consider both objective indicators such as physiological measurements and the subjective indicators from the research population, as demonstrated in stage 4. So we are now in stage 4. Importantly, we also aim for this research project to provide practical and actionable insight to relevant stakeholders, benefiting the well-being and health conditions of vulnerable populations through a cost-effective approach to engaging tourism. So further details regarding the progress of this project will be shared later. So this slide also provides an overview of the 5 research stages outlined for this project. Currently, once again, we are in the preparation phase of stage 4. So our aim is to start the RCT research in 2025 next year and concluded by around 2027. Spanning a duration of around 3 years. So subsequently, the remaining 2 years from 2028 to 2029, so will be dedicated to thoroughly analyzing and summarizing all the research findings based on this project and considering their practical implication. Because once again, so our goal is to apply our academic knowledge and findings into practice, and we do hope we can support more vulnerable populations, especially for dementia people, and to engage in tourism with some very nice experience. So before talking about the potential positive benefits of involving people with dementia in tourism, it's very important to provide some background information on the vulnerable populations with chronic disease. So while research on this topic is prevalent in hard sciences, I believe, so the same cannot be said for tourism research. This is totally another direction on the research area. So the focus of tourism research has primarily been on understanding the needs, wants, expectations, preferences, and behaviors of general tourists in order to develop the industry as a leisure-oriented sector. However, so it is a growing need to explore new tourism, explore how tourism can contribute to global and public health in the modern society across different disciplines. So as indicated in the slides, 80% of the aging population aged about 65 years old in the society has at least one chronic condition. So among the growing elderly population in the globe who suffer from the chronic conditions, so there has been an increasing focus on mental disorders such as depression, dementia, and anxiety. So shockingly, so 1 out of every 8 individuals globally lives with a mental disorder. So, however, mental health services in most parts of the world are severely underfunded. So in 2020, as I came across information regarding populations affected by mental disorders and experienced my family member suffering a low quality of life due to such conditions, pressing questions arose in my mind is, so how can the tourism industry, as the largest in the world, contribute to addressing this issue? So this question has fueled my passion to explore potential solutions through a 10-year research project, and it continues to drive me to this day at the current stage. So dementia falls under the category of mental disorders and encompasses disease like Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson-associated dementia. So my project aims to investigate the potential impact of tourism on the well-being of individuals with dementia, starting with dementia as a focal point. So considering factors like age, uh, genetics and environment in the etiology of dementia, it is plausible to explore the possible connections between dementia and the tourism, particularly in terms of environmental influences. Traveling involves temporarily leaving our familiar surroundings to stay in new places. So according to the information present in this slide, the projected number of individuals living with dementia is about 139 million by the year of 2050. So given this scenario, it becomes imperative for us to suggest innovative approaches to improve the quality of life for dementia populations. So one of which could be through tourism initiatives. So scientifically, there are two main methods available for addressing dementia. So namely, pharmacological and the non-pharmacological interventions. So the non-pharmacological approach has been widely acknowledged and implemented as a primary method. So there is currently no cure for dementia. So medical specialists and healthcare professionals can only manage the symptoms and the condition of individuals with dementia through specific medical interventions. So let's go back to my tourism-based research around dementia populations. So this journal article marks the first publication by our research team for the project in 2022. So the significance of this paper lies in our efforts to bridge the gap between tourism and dementia by exploring the potential of tourism as a medical intervention for dementia from a positive psychology perspective. Serving as a conceptual groundwork, this paper pipes the way for addressing different conceptual and empirical voids in the evolving field prior to starting our planned RCT study. So this study introduced a theoretical framework to emphasize the connection between tourism experiences and the non-pharmacological intervention for dementia. The attention received from the media and the industry for this research paper was unexpected, so leading to a sense of being completely overwhelmed initially. So from June to October 2022, according to the data from our ECU media group, it received over 1,000 media mentions worldwide, potentially reaching an audience of over 1 billion people and estimated advertising value over $5 million across 30 countries. This publication has instilled us with greater confidence to pursue it further, as it appears that it has the potential to make a meaningful contribution to society, serving as a source of the motivation to help us to keep going around this challenging topic. So I'd like to further discuss the paper in a bit more detail. Look at the let's have a look at the table 1. So there are 4 components of tourism experience. affective, cognitive, cognitive, and sensory experience. For example, affective experience refers to the emotion, feelings, and the mood that people have in response to certain experience, such as in tourism. So table 3 on the right part. So table 3 presents a summary of 12 non-pharmacological interventions for dementia based on dementia literature. So certain interventions such as environment, meal times, music therapy, and exercise are closely related to tourism settings and specific tourism experiences. Uh, until today, I still clearly remember Dr. Simone Marino's presentation at the ECU EMCR conference last year, as I mentioned. I believe that his music not only touched my heart, but also benefited those with dementia through his performance and interactions. In simple terms, music therapy for people with dementia could be associated with all four of these experiences: affective, cognitive, and sensory. This conceptual framework of this paper outlines the potential connections between experience and the non-pharmacological interventions for dementia. So I can think that example that the music therapy and the travel therapy maybe in the future could effectively combine to provide valuable support for individuals with dementia. So in tourism territory, we have a lot of music-based events is happening during people's travel experiences. So additional to, according to the table 4, it is evident that the travel related to music has a potential to generate positive experiences for individuals with dementia. This serves as an illustration on how tourism and music can be effectively combined as an example. So, however, it is important to note that our research team is currently in the process of an ongoing project and has not yet been able to provide empirical evidence to fully demonstrate the picture, the precise impact of tourism on individuals with dementia. Nevertheless, so we remain hopeful that this study can offer valuable insights and encourage interdisciplinary collaboration among experts in different disciplines. So actually, we did not discuss a new term travel therapy in our previous journal articles in 2022. However, so our ECU media colleagues innovatively introduced this term in this media article. So we sparked a lot of new ideas for us to develop it as a basis for our research. So the extensive media coverage and invited commentary, such as from CGTN and the Medical Forum, served as additional motivation for us to establish travel therapy as an academic term in the literature. So in the two journal articles, okay, in the in-text references, so we have established the concept of travel therapy, so as a therapeutic approach that enhances the physical and psychological health and the well-being of individuals through positive travel experiences. In addition, we have explored its potential application in three primary tourist segments, namely healthy tourists, tourists with suboptimal status, and tourists with specific health conditions. Upon examining the definition of travel therapy, so we can easily see the intricate nature of this research topic, which shows the different key elements such as physical health, psychological health, well-being, and the positive travel experiences. So for example, so what constitutes positive travel experience for individuals with dementia who are eligible for travel? This is not clear in the literature. And can this experience also benefit individuals with other mental disorders, such as depression? We don't know. Addressing these inquiries and questions is crucial before to take clinical research for travel therapy that targets individuals with dementia and other respective conditions. So different disease naturally requires different interventions and treatment. So for instance, the treatment options for dementia and autism would differ. So in the previous slides, I mentioned briefly about the concept of the suboptimal health status. So this slide provides a bit more details about this concept and the particular group of individuals. So suboptimal health status refers to the physical conditions that lies between being healthy and being diseased. So it indicates the individual with suboptimal health status are at a very higher risk of developing disease over time. As a result, it would be interesting to explore the potential impact of tourism on the health conditions and the overall well-being of this population. So this is Professor Wei Wang, the Pro Chancellor of Edith Cowan University, and who conceptualized and established the concept of suboptimal health in English literature. And he also serves as my mentor in medical science within our interdisciplinary research team. So in general, the impact of travel therapy on people's health conditions can be viewed from the two main perspectives, prevention and treatment. So it also brings a lot of unanswered questions, okay, in this research stream. So need more investigation across different disciplines. So the next stage of the interdisciplinary research project aims to methods, integration, and design between tourism and the health discipline with a joint force across the discipline. So this paper shown in the slide published in 2023 discusses the methodological challenges and offer the recommended solutions for empirical research regarding vulnerable populations with psychological disorders in tourism with a focus on dementia. So this paper particularly focuses on the application of experimental studies through randomized controlled trial RCT to investigate the different key research inquiries, including the impacts of travel intervention, the causes of travel psychology, changes in well-being and behaviors, and the implication for the clinical research. So RCT has been widely acknowledged as a gold standard for clinical trials. However, it has not been applied in the field of tourism research. So this is a huge research gap. So moreover, observational study can also be taken into account when examining participants' subjective perceptions regarding travel therapy, such as their perceptions of travel experiences, travel demands, and obstacles, and the impact on their health conditions, such as dementia and the general well-being. So from a methodological perspective, so this paper established a strong foundation for our research projects, especially for the stage 4 preparation stage. So this slide highlights the methodological obstacle and suggested recommendations for participants, research data, and research design respectively. So throughout the progression of the travel therapy project, so we have encountered a lot of challenges across these fields that requires actual effort to transcend our individual research field in order to effectively merge these disciplines. So for example, so without the support of my colleagues in medical science field, getting access to dementia patients in hospitals for primary data collection becomes nearly impossible. However, so on a positive note, so this shows the beauty of interdisciplinary research as it encourages us to think outside of the box and collect and collaborate with each other based on our research capacities. So this highlights the specific areas for future research in engaging individuals with dementia in tourism. So with a particular emphasis on promoting positive experiences for tourists and caregivers, as well as addressing the needs of tourism supplies and implementing effective tourism interventions. But we need to acknowledge that not all individuals with psychological disorders such as dementia are able to travel based on their health status and different other factors. So this study examines the travel eligibility of vulnerable travelers by focusing on the four common mental disorders, such as major depressive disorders, generalized anxiety disorders, and dementia as examples. And then we apply the travel eligibility concept into our primary research, exploring perceptions of travel eligible individuals with dementia and the hotel operators. So this research made a good contribution in highlighting the individuals with dementia who are eligible for travel in the tourism literature. So initially, the participants' the dementia was evaluated using the mini mental state examination (MMSE) measurement scales. There are more other options. Subsequently, so the inclusion criteria were established based on previous dementia research, so which included participants aged between 65 to 75 years. They are capable of providing complete information for the interviews without a history of severe somatic disease like cancer and without a history of severe mental disorders and with the MMC score between 20 and 24, indicating mild dementia. And it's also crucial to establish precise exclusion criteria for the research population, such as aged under 40 were excluded, and those who have been taking antipsychotic medication within 24 hours of the interview, and individuals with an MMC score below 20, and those currently involved in another clinical trial related to dementia, or those with severe alcohol or illicit drug abuse. So this criteria highlights the necessity of incorporating expertise from specific disciplines when conducting interdisciplinary research. So for example, so when I do the research and review the literature, I have come across some of the paper that overlooks the different stages of the mental disorder, such as intellectual disability. So while gathering the data on travel-related behavior or experience without taking their symptoms and their disease stage into consideration. So failing to consider such important factors so could potentially lead to misleading research outcomes for academia, industry, and other interested parties. So this research conducted in interviews with only a small sample of 15 participants who had dementia, and their average age was approaching 70 years old. The whole data collection process was very challenging. So upon reviewing the identified themes of this research, at that time I couldn't help but feel very emotional as I contemplated the challenge faced by the vulnerable population when it comes to engaging in tourism, despite receiving support and professional services. The study identified 6 themes. So included the first one is hiding dementia medical history, avoiding discrimination, low expectations about the hotel services and support for their medical conditions, distract towards hotel-based medical facilities, expectations of home-like room design, and the preference for limited interaction. So I firmly believe that there is a lot more we can do to provide support to enhance the quality of life for these individuals with dementia and other disease across different disciplines. So we can see from the results, they are looking for support and to help them to engage in tourism or other leisure activities to enhance their quality of life. So we are currently conducting more research and preparing papers for publication in journals. So this paper covers the different aspects related to individuals with dementia and such as their motivation for tourism, their barriers, the barriers they are facing, strategies for negotiation, the development of the dementia-friendly tourism destination, and the prescription of tourism experience, etc. So these papers contribute to the overall understanding of our project, especially for the population with dementia. As we are dedicated to finding ways to support individuals with dementia in having positive travel experience. But as I mentioned, so how to create or prescribe a positive tourism experience for people with dementia? There's nothing existing in the literature. So when we try to move this project forward, there are lots of issues and the questions are waiting for us to solve. So regarding the project, so I feel that as mentioned, the more we do, the more research we need to conduct. So this situation has both positive and a negative aspect for me and my team research team members. So this presentation displays some of the research gaps that have been identified, as well as the progress we have made on our project. For example, and we need to determine how to tailor positive experience specifically for individuals with dementia. And their travel needs and expectations are totally different from those of the general populations. And we also need to identify dementia-friendly tourism destinations and determine if any destination can meet the expectations of people with dementia. And from a scientific standpoint, so there is currently no objective evidence to demonstrate the connection between tourism and health based on physiological indicators, for example. And from the practical perspective, and we need to figure out how to evaluate the cost benefits of travel therapy for specific tourist groups, such as people with dementia. There are still many gaps in the literature that need to be addressed and solved through further academic research efforts in this area. And briefly sharing the different research papers at a different stage of the project, as shown in the slides again. So we have now reached stage 4 this year. And this stage involves preparing for the clinical efficacy examination of travel therapy for individuals with dementia using RCT, so which is considered the gold standard for clinical trials. So we're hopeful that this stage will start as planned in 2025. A concise overview of the stage 4 study involves evaluating the impact of the virtual tourism on individuals with dementia through RCT study. So this study will take place in China with support from our collaborating hospitals and medical science professors, and will compare virtual tourism with traditional physical tourism to determine the effectiveness and the safety of virtual travel therapy for individuals with dementia. Additionally, the research will investigate how different travel scenarios, such as nature-based versus social-based environments, affects the therapeutic outcomes for this population. So the study will consist of a single-blind crossover RCT to evaluate the clinical efficacy and the safety of VR tourism, as well as the therapeutic effects of different tourism landscapes. So that's a research, that's a briefly research design for the upcoming research at stage 4. So there are some the key references shaping my presentation today. So once again, so on behalf of our research team, and really appreciate this opportunity to share a little bit about our research, ongoing research. So we're helpful that this will open doors for a more potential collaboration in the field of dementia research and across our different disciplines. Thank you for listening. So that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jun. That was amazing. I have a page of questions, but I'm not going to abuse my role as chair. I will open this up for questions, but let me just begin by saying, first of all, what an excellent model of development of a new field, the way that you crafted the conversation for the literature and the way that you have presented this new field in the literature is a really wonderful model, I think, for developing new fields of research. It's very exciting to see this work for vulnerable populations, and I'm sure you know that dementia is currently the leading cause of death for women in Australia, and it will soon be the leading cause of death for men. So this is an issue that we're going to all be living with into the future. So it's so exciting to see your work. And I'll also mention that apologies from our colleague Simone Marino. He would have loved to have been here. I'm so glad we're recording this because I'm sure he will be watching it with great interest, the recording. Simone is co-located in an aged care provider where he does his music intervention every day, you know, to the joy and delight of his clients. So let me now open this up for discussion. If I could invite everyone to turn their videos on so that we can have more of a sense of community, if you're comfortable to do that. And please welcome questions and conversation. So I can see Hien and then Kat.
So, Kat, you speak first. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Wen, for a very interesting presentation. I really enjoyed, especially I saw this problem over the past 5 years. I volunteer for aged care, and a lot of the Vietnamese people just want to travel back to Vietnam, but they have a lot of the issues related to health conditions, and one of them is about the memory loss. And my question is, do you consider about the care-related cost for the traveling for people living with dementia? Because a lot of questions arise around the family members of the people living with dementia that they need a carer to travel with them during the trip, or the family or the older people is not have they don't have the full capacity to go on their own. So I think care-related cost is really significant when we considering about the tourism therapy for the people living with dementia.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Yeah, this is definitely an issue for us to consider the relevant cost for people with dementia to travel and how they travel, whether they can travel with the expected positive experiences. So this is exactly what we are looking for our research. The first thing is So based on my understanding, so based on keep in touch with industry providers in tourism, so this kind of the service are very limited, very limited. Okay, so most of the services are sort of the customized. This is a case. This is individual based. So for example, so I have an industry partner in USA, and he is doing his business to helping dementia people to travel overseas. So each travel, okay, needs to be tailored, okay, only for the specific clients based on their health status, their travel abilities, and if they need to travel with other people like a caregiver, formal or informal caregiver family members, and if they like a professional tour guide and sort of thing. So for this emerging service provision in tourism, this is definitely, we call it a luxury tourism. So health is a luxury. And especially for the vulnerable population, unfortunately, when they want to travel, they definitely need to handle the much higher cost because the services are very limited. So in some country, I believe if they have the money, have the financial availability, they even cannot find the service provider. Unfortunately, this is a reality. So when we published the paper in 2022, from things that, so we received a lot of, have a lot of questions from the industry operators to ask us, do you have any contacts? Can you give us some the professional guidelines and advice? My answer is sorry. This is our first paper. I believe you know more than I do. I have very limited knowledge. I know nothing about the service provision in the tourism industry. So I believe the cost is huge, is much higher than the general tourist in the world. Okay, but I believe in the aging society, this must be the niche market, and for more industry practitioners to pay attention to, and maybe the service availability is getting higher in the near future. But we must provide some professional guidelines for the industry people to understand how they can professionally and based on scientific evidence to look after and support this vulnerable population in tourism. Thank you.
Thank you. Kat?
Thank you. And thank you. I'd like to echo everyone's words. That was a really exceptional presentation and wonderful to see the way that you're mapping out the different disciplinary contributions to this new field. I too have a page of papers, but I'm going to questions rather, but I'm going to just ask about two. One relates to the disciplines and the methods. So you've got this marriage of tourism research and medical research and these other fields, and then the related methods that you outlined around RCTs and interviews and other forms of observation. And I wondered about the mobilities research in the mobilities field, the ride-along mobile ethnography that's been pioneered by human geographers, but also anthropologists working in the mobility space, and whether that's another, I don't want to mix up your disciplinary soup yet further, but maybe that's another really productive way of capturing the actual experience of dementia, both actual travel and virtual. So I wanted to ask if you'd thought about the ride-along and mobile ethnography approach. And then the second point I wanted to ask was around this idea of a dementia-friendly destination or resort, because this kind of, I've been thinking a lot lately about respite care and everything that's wrong with respite care, because we know from a lot of research that carers have have high carer stress, But if they put their loved one into respite care, very often the result of that period of separation can be significantly worsening symptoms, loss of continence, declining cognitive abilities. It can be a really harmful impact. So when the person returns, the carer's job is actually worse than it was before they had this break. And so I was wondering if there's possibly a marriage between creating a new model for respite care where it's somewhere that both the caregiver and their loved one can go together, but where there's sufficient support for the carer to take a break and to engage in pleasurable leisure activities that they enjoy and can allow them to unwind, while also providing the right supports for the person living with dementia to enjoy their stay as well, and create, there's a real market for resorts that facilitate this kind of break and holiday, or whatever the right word is, for both the person living with dementia and their caregiver. And maybe it's even possible, respite care is funded. Maybe there's a way to create, to marry tourism and care funding. So yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And for your first point, I'll be very happy to learn the new knowledge around that methodology. I have no idea about it, but definitely I will shoot an email to you. I'm definitely going to check if anything, So the more we do, the more we learn. So thank you for the first point. And for the second one, definitely. So the reality is now in the world, there is no such things like dementia-friendly tourism destination. But if you check the literature, in the literature across the different disciplines, there are lots of research about how to develop dementia-friendly tourism destination or other vulnerability-friendly tourism destination sort of thing. But there's a gap between academia and the industry, unfortunately. Until today, there's nothing around dementia-friendly tourism destination. I believe there's one slide I talk about. I think this is a methodological paper in 2023. So for the future niche markets, this is definitely not only our focus on the dementia patients. This is one customer segments, because we also need to pay attention to their caregiver. Because we believe that the majority of the dementia people, they need a company to travel, especially for overseas. For the day trip is another story, is case by case. Maybe they can travel independently, but for maybe multiple days or overseas outbound travel, they have to travel with someone. So and they can be looked after well. So this is really important. We provide the service and the support to the caregiver and the other traveling parties with the people with dementia. That's a whole picture and a whole package. But now, because I'm doing research in tourism, the hospitality, it's really hard to find any like a dementia-based medical facilities at hotels. But I think it will be changed, because I believe certain governments started to pay attention to the tourism, the hospitality industry, and to encourage them to pay attention to the needs, wants, expectation, preferences, and medical assistance, and for the vulnerable populations. I think this is happening in Australia as well. But I think it will take a long time. But no matter what, so I believe more research needs to be done. As I mentioned, we need to provide scientific, reliable evidence to inform the industry partners what need to be considered when you develop dementia-friendly tourism destination. So how you need to provide the services, and the support for people with dementia when they stay at your hotels. For the hotel, the tourism operators, what exactly you need to consider and to prescribe or tailor customize positive tourism experiences for people with dementia as a priority. You need to understand what they like, what they dislike, and they also need to have the professional knowledge about the certain types of mental disorders. So I believe this is such a complex picture, and this is a completely new research stream, and in the literature, and definitely the efforts and the support across the different disciplines. So yeah, I think that's a reality now, unfortunately. Yeah, in tourism.
Can I just add on to that before we go to KU's question, that there's a lack of dementia-friendly destinations at home. You know, we don't have anywhere that's easy for people to go to without leaving the shores of our homelands. And one of the blue sky ideas that we talk about in the SAGE lab here at ECU is creating a dementia-friendly village where people and their caregivers could go just for the day. You know, we don't have enough of those resources at home. So maybe we could continue this conversation with you later on about building destinations at home to begin with even. I'd really be interested in that conversation. I've got other questions, but I'll hand over to KU and then Mononita, but I'm also going to put my hand up so I don't miss out.
Thank you. It was wonderful, and I was also amazed about how you mapped out the whole field and possible connections. As an anthropologist, I'm right away thinking about individual's perspective, and actually it echoes Kat's first comment, these stories that could enrich your material even further. So what are these subjectivities and individual approaches? So what people are thinking about when they are thinking about traveling and tourism, and whether somehow, in case of dementia, there is also always moment of exclusion. Some of the elements of the tourism people are missing, or the aspects are that will be kept from them, even when we have all these facilities and caregivers supporting. And I was just wondering, maybe you can share these whether you have these case stories already, or whether you're at this phase comfortable of sharing what are the barriers we cannot overcome, even when we, or maybe these are these aspects that they are still lacking, even when we are creating this environment. Thank you.
Yeah, so definitely I agree. But I think the situation will be changed, because now we are in the aging society. I think as I show in the one slide, is 1 in every 8 people has mental disorder. So it's shocking for me. And I also observed one of my family members suffer from dementia for around 20 years. So that's why, that's 99% of the reason I want to do research about dementia, but my PhD is in tourism. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how can I find the meaning in my research? I say I have to do something to combine the 2 different areas together. I'm thinking, okay, tourism, dementia, how they can be married together. So yeah, fortunately, okay, so I find a way to say, okay, how about we try to do something to encourage or support the people with dementia in tourism, because this is a definitely unconventional research topic in tourism. At the beginning, nobody believes me. They thought you are crazy. You are just shooting the sky. It will never have an have no results. But yeah, so once again, this is only the beginning or in the halfway for the project. I think more importantly is about the objective evidence, how the 2 can possibly connected with each other. But until today, we have no idea. Yeah. please.
If I may elaborate it a bit, I'm definitely agreeing. In whenever we are moving from one phase to another in our lives, we are also missing out of different activities. It is the logical part of our life cycle. So, for example, at some point, maybe we are not enjoying water skiing that much, or we are not going to run a marathon or go super difficult hiking. So these kind of overcoming different phases and being open to new and different kind of activities, it is just another step. Know that you have to miss out or you have to quit traveling at all. You are just changing it. So yeah, absolutely. I can see it happening. So thank you for showing us this perspectives.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Kayu. Mononita.
I can see that Loretta is sacrificing her time. Thank you. Dr. Wen, I echo with everybody what an excellent idea and what an excellent presentation. So coming from or having discipline from public health, I would love to know that have you thought or coming across with that how much travel do they require to have a meaningful impact on their quality of life or level of dementia states, and what is the intensity of travel or the quality of travel, or of course, I mean, you mentioned where to travel. Like for migrants, going home is better than going some other unknown places. Is there any differences between the impact on their quality of life or well-being? And so this is one. Another one that Hian raised that issues about the cost. So have you thought about having the virtual travel then? So they do not have to travel physically, possibly once a year or twice a year, but I mean, there are some virtual reality available now. Have you thought about using those technology for this intervention?
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you for your two questions. Okay, so let me start from the second one, because yeah, definitely. Okay, so as I briefly introduce our research projects, the stage 4, the next stage using RCT. So we use virtual tourism as a proximity, because the first thing is no, not all the dementia people with dementia can travel on site physically on their own. So the second, okay, so as a starting point, we try to find a bit more cost-effective methods and to explore the connection between tourism and their health condition and the symptom development, sort of thing. So we use virtual tourism as sort of like a pilot study as a first medical science-based empirical research. So definitely we will do it in next year, and we will collect the data in a lab in China, and to provide the VR devices and other facilities, and for people with mild stage dementia, and to have the experience of virtual tourism based on 2 scenarios. The first is nature-based, and birds singing or something, okay, the nature, and another one is a culture-based content. So we want to try what's the difference between the different the tourism content scenario. So definitely for your second question, we definitely will use virtual tourism as a pilot study stage. And for the first one, so again, what's your first question?
The first one is it's like a dose response. How much travel do they? Okay. The impact. I mean, how much travel do they need to have a meaningful impact? What is the intensity?
Yeah, we have no idea. It is no data, no research. This is a completely new research area, as I mentioned, and in the literature and the government or the professional association report is no information about it. So when I check the information we can get from Dementia Australia, say, okay, so dementia people are encouraged to travel, depends on their health status. But how they travel, how can I, as a service provider, to prescribe the positive tourism experiences for these tourist segments? It's unknown. We know nothing about it. So we are working on a paper about prescribing tourism, and we talk about how we can possibly cultivate a positive experience for people with dementia in travel. So as I mentioned, so before moving to the RCT stage, there are so many gaps in the literature and we need to solve. Otherwise, the first thing, we have no idea how we control the variable of tourism experience. This is so broad. What do you mean? Is it negative, positive? What do you mean by positive? So how positive is positive experiences? So we need to conceptualize all these things as a foundation of the next stage RCT research. So I appreciate your question, but unfortunately, I have no answer for it. I think that's a very important information in the literature, definitely in the next stage when we promote. So why tourism is potentially important for vulnerable population, and we need to have the data to convince the majority of the people in the society. Thank you.
Thanks, Mononita. My question kind of follows on from something you said. So most of us in the SAGE lab, June, are migration scholars, and there is a literature about visits home and the role of visits home, and one in the migrant experience. And one of the kind of projects that we've been doing with people living with dementia in Australia from migrant backgrounds is doing virtual visits home, not using VR, virtual reality, but just using geo browsers like Google, what's it called? Google Earth. And so we can share with you some of the insights from that work. We've done it with Changhua, with Chinese migrants, and taking them back to visit. So the cultural content you were talking about in your project, we have experimented a little bit with that. So I would like to recommend that we think about creating the first dementia-friendly destination here as part of your research vision moving forward, because there really is a lack of resources for people living with dementia. And what we're finding in our work with dementia in migrant communities in Australia is that we have increased risk of social isolation because of the stigma associated with the illness within migrant communities and families, and also because there's nowhere safe to go that's dementia friendly, people just opt to stay home, which is the worst thing you can do for someone with dementia, because lack of social engagement increases the deterioration of well-being. So I'm really excited about your work, but I can see so many applications for it at home as well. And I agree with Mononita. Thinking about the literature on visits home might be one way to begin with visits, taking people back to places that already have a lot of memory, because we know that reminiscence therapy and memory therapy is so important. But can I just mention a few other things? There is a literature on cruises, and I know that the cruise is often a safe place for people to go, older couples, they might have cognitive decline. There's the medical services on board. All of your meals are catered for. I feel like the cruise is perhaps the first dementia-friendly destination, but it hasn't been written about as such, because I know people who go on cruises and they have some dementia, and it's like the the existing option for that kind of group. I also think that first language, like people with dementia revert to first language. And so thinking about language in your virtual reality experiments next year is really important. And finally, I have other questions, but I'm going to limit myself because I want to give the other people a chance. There are some lessons from virtual reality studies in sociology that I think are really relevant to your work. For example, one of the criticisms of virtual reality therapies for older people with dementia is that it's really fun, and the caregivers get really interested in it, and they end up paying more attention to the technology than the people with dementia. So you can have a shift in effort from the person living with dementia and social relationships with carers to the technology. I just want to mention that because that's some really interesting research finding that's coming out that I think would be really valuable for you to think about. You. And finally, why is it a medical intervention and not a social intervention? But I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I found the first one is really interesting about the cruise. We never thought about it. So definitely we'll look at the literature to see if we get any connection between the two. I think that's a really interesting topic. Thank you.
So next is Hien, and then Neljin, you had your hand up. I'm not letting you get away with it. So Hien.
Yeah, I share the same ideas with Loretta. That why not the bringing social why not dementia and tourism is a sociological and social perspective rather than the health. Health is only one aspect of this related to this topic. And I was thinking about, we are not only thinking about the international travel, we're also thinking about the local travel and local tourism. For example, now, as Loretta mentions, people living with dementia, so it's very hard for them to travel for even a short or long distance. So a lot of them, they only want to go out for outing. But even the care service provider, even they never consider the people living with dementia for outings, even for maybe some kilometers or some tens of kilometers. It's a reality, because the carers and the service providers don't really worry about the destination and how they can care for the clients in the appropriate way that will not create the accidents for the client. That one very important one. And we're talking about the institutional barriers, insurance, about the kind of traveling, car traveling, flight traveling, and also about the income to subsidize. So, for example, I have a lot of story around that. A lot of people want to have travel, and they want to stay in the home country for a couple of months or maybe at least 6 months. But the government of Australia regulate that they cannot get the age pension after 6 months. So in that case, we also need to talking about the institutional barriers for research in dementia and tourism too, and also the we're talking about the aging friendly environment. Just a lot of ideas about that. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I think this topic we definitely to consider the dementia people's travel motivation, perceive the constraints and the travel barriers and their selected destination. So compared to outbound tourism or domestic tourism. So there are different options require the different preparations and the medical support and the support from the caregivers, etc. Yeah, absolutely. We acknowledge that. So yeah, because as Loretta mentioned, okay, so I can ring the bell now. So when I think last year when we published some papers and I talked to a professor in Germany, and he just told me, okay, so and he took his father and back to Poland. So where they lived many, many years ago and try to get the memory back. Okay, so I think that's gonna be the one of the general motivation for people with dementia and travel overseas and for a reason. I think that's gonna be one of them. So if this is the case, so I think outbound travel is it should be, you know, to discuss and to prepare and for this this population if they do want to just travel back and for their memory. So yeah, and thank you for your for sharing your ideas. Definitely, yeah. And there are lots. There are so many. The more we do, the more we need to do. So never end.
Yeah, it's you've generated a lot of ideas for us as well. I mean, there is an intersection between migration studies and travel studies, tourism studies. So the roots migration, the roots travel, you know, heritage travel. I think that's there is a kind of a crossover between migration and tourism. But Neljan, did you have a question?
Yes, Loretta, but it's kind of just a simple one. I have
good.
a shaky.
Simple is good.
Yeah, yeah. I have a shaky internet today, and that's the reason why I'm just keeping my camera off. Thank you, Dr. Wen, for that insightful and fascinating presentation. I would definitely love to read your results when they're published. I just wanted to know, what, according to you or your research team, is considered one of the greatest gatekeepers for people living with dementia to travel? Or is there something like that?
Yes, yes, I think as I mentioned, so now from the industry perspectives, the service is very limited and the cost is another the huge barrier. Yeah, so back in 2020 until now, so sometimes, and I can still hear from the industry partners and ask me something, okay, could you help this client and that? So the first thing as a gatekeeper is, still the service is very, very limited. And if they can travel and they cannot find the support, they even cannot get, have no idea where to get the medical advice and for their traveling, because from in the hospital, like in China, even traditionally, and yeah, so people with dementia is suggested to stay at home. Okay, don't go outside, don't get lost, and just to keep safe. So there are a lot of our traditional views need to be updated, but this is a long story, and of course, no matter what, and we need to push it forward and based on the reliable scientific evidence to convince them. So this is my belief. So that's why I think we should be more and to share with the public. So if we cannot do that, they still, I think, even in the aging society, it's really, really hard to push the development of the tourism services and the provisions for the vulnerable population, because you still think, okay, the general population as the income sources, even, so being more effective from the business perspective. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
We're having a little discussion in the chat, Jun, about insurance costs, travel insurance costs, because we work with people and live with people living with dementia, and these are issues that we're kind of, like you, I'm motivated by my personal experience. My father is living with dementia and my parents would like to visit Italy again, their homeland, but my mother got a quote for insurance, which is over 10,000 Australian dollars. It's really kind of inhibiting. Yeah. Are there any other questions? We've got another 5 minutes. This has been a wonderful journey together. Any other questions? Well, I would love to hear more about your work, Jun. I think we're all here at ECU together. I think there's lots of overlaps, and maybe we can invite you back and your team. It's wonderful to have members of your team and share some of our research that is relevant. Maybe we can present on our virtual visits or something.
Sure.
But thank you very much for joining us today, and I hope that we can continue to talk about joint research possibilities. And finally, congratulations on this very important work and on the wonderful beginning that you've made, and all the best for the journey ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me today. So I would like to learn more about from your team's research around dementia population. I believe so we have more idea exchanging opportunities in the near future. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank
Bye.
you.